Have you ever been reading through the Old Testament and you come across this figure who seems to be an angel, but then out of nowhere he starts talking as if he is God? It is, without a doubt, one of the most interesting puzzles in the entire Bible, and today we're going to try and solve it.
So you've got a messenger who shows up, right? But his words are, well, they're divine. He speaks in the first person, as God. And that leaves us with a huge question. Who is this guy? Is he an angel? Is he God himself? Or is something else going on entirely?
And this really gets to the heart of the paradox. On the one hand, his title is literally the angel of the Lord, Malak Yahweh, a messenger. But then look at his words. I am the God of your father. I will greatly multiply your descendants. Wait a minute. How can a messenger speak as the one who sent him? It feels like a total contradiction.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We're going to start with this mysterious messenger. Then we'll uncover an ancient legal idea that might just be the key. After that, we'll apply it to the mystery, look at a powerful biblical story that shows it in action, compare two major ways of thinking about divinity, and finally, see how it all comes together in the end.
So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the puzzle itself. Who is this figure, this angel of the Lord who shows up again and again in the Hebrew Scriptures?
And what's wild is that a clear pattern starts to emerge. Every time this angel appears, the people who meet him have the exact same reaction. Hagar encounters him and immediately calls him the God who sees. Jacob wrestles with him and walks away saying, I have seen God face to face. Manoah is absolutely terrified he's going to die simply because we have seen God. The Bible's constantly blurring this line. He is somehow identified with God, but at the same time, he is also sent from God. So what's going on?
Well, to solve this, we don't actually need to dive into complex philosophy. The key, it turns out, is found in ancient Jewish law. It's a legal principle known as shaliach.
So what in the world is a shaliach? Well, think of it as an authorized agent or an emissary. But here's the crucial part. In Jewish law, this person doesn't just represent the sender. No, for all legal and practical purposes, they are the person who sent them. The agent carries the sender's name, speaks with their voice, and wields their full, unmitigated authority.
And this ancient saying from the Mishnah sums it up perfectly. A person's agent is as himself. Legally speaking, whatever the agent does, it's considered as if the principal, the person who sent him, did it. Now, this is really important. It doesn't mean the agent and the sender are the same being. That's ontology. It means the agent acts as the sender in his role. Functionally, he is a perfect stand-in.
Okay, so now that we have this principle of agency, this shliach concept, let's go back to those confusing encounters in the Bible. All of a sudden, they start to click into place.
Let's look at Hagar again. The text is clear. The angel spoke to her. But notice what she does. She doesn't give a name to the angel. She names the Lord who spoke to her. Why? Because through this cultural and legal lens of the shaliach, she knew. She understood that the voice of the fully authorized agent was the voice of God himself.
And then, of course, you have the burning bush, one of the most famous scenes in the whole Bible. The story begins by telling us the angel of the Lord appeared in the flame. But when the voice speaks, it says, I am who I am. The text just flows seamlessly from messenger to God, because in their minds, the messenger is the perfect agent, bearing the divine presence and speaking the divine voice.
And this passage, this one is a real game changer. God tells Israel that this special angel has the divine authority to forgive sin, and he gives the reason why. For my name is in him. See, in this culture, bearing someone's name wasn't just about identification. It meant you carried their entire authority, their power, their very character. This is no ordinary angel. This is the supreme agent of God.
So it turns out the angel of the Lord isn't a contradiction after all. He is Yahweh's supreme agent, his shaliach. He can speak and act as God because he has been fully authorized by God. He represents the sender so perfectly that he can use his voice without literally being the sender in his essence.
Now, if this idea of agency still feels a little bit abstract, don't worry. The Bible gives us this beautiful, powerful story that perfectly illustrates how this all works in practice.
Just look at the parallels between Joseph and Jesus. Pharaoh delegates total authority to Joseph over all of Egypt. Sound familiar? The Father gives Jesus all authority. But, in both cases, there's a clear statement of subordination. Pharaoh says, only on the throne will I be greater, and Jesus says, the Father is greater than I. And yet reverence is commanded to both agents. Egypt is told to bow the knee to Joseph, just as we're told every knee should bow to Jesus. Why? Because to honor the agent is to honor the one who sent him. Joseph was not Pharaoh, but he wielded Pharaoh's full authority.
So this biblical model of agency, where a subordinate can perfectly represent a higher authority, creates a really fascinating contrast with a later theological idea that many of us are probably more familiar with, the concept of co-equality, which really took form at the Council of Nicaea.
Let's just break it down. In the agency model, the relationship is seen as a principal and his supreme agent. Authority is delegated from the Father to the Son. This lines up perfectly with verses like, "The Father is greater than I." In the co-equality model, they are viewed as persons who are equal in their very being, sharing authority by nature, supported by texts like, "I and the Father are one." So the fundamental question becomes this: is the Son's submission a part of who he is eternally, or was it just a temporary role he played while on earth?
When we turn to the New Testament, we find this incredibly consistent pattern that really seems to point toward that agency model. Paul, for example, defines the one God specifically as the Father. Jesus himself, while praying to the Father, calls him the only true God. Jesus says he can do nothing on his own. And maybe most compellingly, even after his resurrection, ascension, and glorification, Jesus still refers to the Father as my God. This subordination doesn't seem temporary at all. It seems to be a permanent reality.
And all of this brings us to the ultimate endgame. What does the Bible say is the final purpose, the ultimate state of the Son's authority?
While the Apostle Paul paints this just stunning picture of the end of all things, he says that after the Son has brought everything in the cosmos under his authority, his very final act isn't to take his place on an equal throne forever. No, his final act is to hand the entire kingdom back to God the Father, and then to subject himself to the Father.
Now think about what that means. This tells us that the Son's subordination wasn't just a role he played for 33 years on earth. According to Paul, this final act of subjection is the very goal of history. It's meant to reveal an eternal truth, that the Father is the ultimate source, and the Son is his glorious, supreme agent forever.
So all of this really leaves us with a pretty profound question. Once we understand this ancient legal principle of the shaliach, the authorized agent who is as the one who sent him, could it be the key that unlocks some of the most difficult and debated passages about God and his Son? Could it actually change how we read the Bible today?